Welcome to Insight Builder channel, large language model automators, Python experts, and my dear friends. Can you tell me about Argilla? How to install Argilla Server, connect to that server with Python, and start annotating datasets? That's the main objective why you want to use Argilla, right? Let's dive into it. So, installing Argilla UI, that is user interface, it comes with this parts. So, Argilla needs a server, and that server will connect to the UI, that is a front end, the Python client, as well as the vector store. All these three are necessary. The vector store is optional if you are not going to use the sorting with embeddings or the vector based search in the backend. Apart from this, the Python client and the front end UI is a must. All these applications, whether the server or the front end UI, everything is taken care with the help of Docker images, or you can directly install from the development environment from the GitHub repo. Argilla is open source, so nothing stops you from actually looking at their code and even understanding and modifying it. Also, most importantly, contributing it to their code bases. Our direction today is to only work on installing the server and connecting to the server through Python client. For that, we are going to concentrate on this HuggingFace HFSpaces. I'm going to ungroup the selection and I am going to modify the color. So this is the HuggingFace Spaces installation is what we are going to concentrate. When it comes to Argilla client, there are two Python clients that is provided by using the pip installation. That is pip install Argilla will give you the Python client that can connect with the Argilla servers and push the datasets and start working and pulling and pushing the datasets. Also, the same thing you can do with the client also. When it comes to credentials, so these things we will dive into once we start the installation process. I just want to highlight this. By default, the Argilla server that gets installed in HFSpaces comes with these credentials. It is given, it's not, you don't need to actually create it. It comes inbuilt by the installation itself. When you are going to do the local installation, the username and password is a little bit different. In case of admin and password, you can see the admin user is generated and password 1234 is generated. But if it is in HuggingFace HFSpaces, then the password is a little longer and there is an additional user called as owner. Fine. When it comes to the workspaces, you have to create workspaces. That's very important. By default, Argilla comes with admin workspace. After that, you have to, on top of it, work on creating new workspaces. You can create new users or annotators and you can add them to the workspaces. And again, you can do this loop and you can add any number of annotators you want. And once you have added them, they can actually log in using their username and password and they can start helping you. You can create the datasets using the Python client or through any other option that is available through the listeners or through the staging mechanism that is provided by Argilla. Lots of variations are available in this location, but we will be working with Python client to begin with. You can create the datasets, create the records and add it to the datasets. You can add the annotation questions and then you can push it to the Argilla server where the annotators will do the annotation for you. This is the loop of how the things work. I've given you an overview right now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to dive into the Argilla HuggingFace HFSpaces deployment. I'm loading the documentation of Argilla and also I'm loading the HuggingFace HFSpaces HuggingFace Hub account that I already have. This is my dashboard of HuggingFace Hub. And you can actually look at this particular link here. This is called the spaces. In this space, you will be given a free space of that can host a 16 GB RAM machine. It will not have a GPU. It will have a 16 GB RAM, I think 2 CPU virtual environment, virtual machine actually, not an environment, where you can host your Argilla server. So that's what we are going to do in this discussion. In my case, I already have a Argilla server that is running on the HuggingFace HFSpaces, and I'm going to enter into that to show you how it looks. If you guys have not looked at my earlier video in this playlist, try to take a look at that where I introduce Argilla. So this is how the UI will look after you have logged in. So in this case, I have logged in as owner, and in case of Argilla HuggingFace HFSpaces, it's required that you log in as owner to actually create the datasets. If you log in as admin, you will not be able to create the datasets. All this information is provided in the documentation, and Argilla's documentation is a little bit fluid, like most of the Python libraries. So be open to change yourself and read a lot. Fine. What I'm going to do is, in order to avoid any kind of challenges, I can actually use this settings, and I can delete the application before I create a new spaces. Here I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to try and see whether I can create another one space inside HuggingFace Hub. Let's dive in. Going to the documentation of Argilla, I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I believe that the dark background is okay for you guys, the dark mode. Let us move to the quick start. So if you go to the quick start, there will be installation option, and there will be multiple options here. If you look at the sidebar here, so there is Python, Docker, Docker quick start, Compose, HuggingFace Hub, cloud providers, and Google Colab. All of these installation processes will have the same thing that you saw here. It will have an Argilla server, it will have a front end, Python client, and a vector store. Without these things, you cannot actually store the data somewhere and start processing it, right? Only thing is, how it is being hosted is a little bit different in all of these options that you have seen, that we are seeing here. Let us begin with Python, and let us click on Python and see what options are there. It's actually a bit of confusion here, because what happens is, in this case, the entire Argilla server, the front end, the back end, the database, everything is installed through pip installation, and this is actually not recommended, if you ask me, because it's a little bit confusing, and if you're beginning, I would always suggest to avoid this route. Okay, the next best route that you have got is using Dockers. Creating separate Dockers, you can you can work on pulling individual Docker images of Elasticsearch, Argilla, and also the Argilla front end. So you can see that every Docker pull is explained here. The idea here is that instead of this particular page helps you to understand this particular point, the front end UI, the Python client, and the vector store, etc. This is understood once you look at this page, right? This is only for understanding. When you have Docker Compose and Docker Quick Start, I wouldn't even suggest you to run these things one by one. If you are learning Docker, and if you want to see how multiple Docker applications come together under a Docker network, then this will be a very good exercise for you. If not, if you're already quite familiar with Docker, then I wouldn't suggest you to go through this route. The next best route is to go through Docker Compose. The Docker Compose route is, I'll be taking this up in the next video, where I do a local installation of Argilla and do the same process again, just to show the difference. And there are a couple of modifications that you can do that I'll be discussing in the next video. And the most easiest option is the Argilla HuggingFace HFSpaces. What happens in this case is, if you guys are new to HuggingFace HFSpaces, let me actually dive into the space, and I will show you a bit about the spaces also right now. I am in the HuggingFace HFSpaces dashboard page. You can access the Spaces dashboard page by clicking on this link, and and also you need to have an account in HuggingFace HFSpace for HuggingFace Hub to begin with. I already have, and I have already signed in. You have to click on Create New Space, and once you click on Create New Space, it will provide you an opportunity to select the space name, the licenses that you want to begin, and what kind of applications you are going to host, and most importantly, what kind of the hardware that you are going to expect. So in this case, we have a free hardware setup that is provided with 2 vCPUs, that is virtual CPUs, with 16 GB RAM, and it is free of cost. This particular hardware, you can directly use it for working with the Argilla server. It is more than sufficient, and in fact, we are not going to use Argilla server for doing any kind of training. We are going to use it only for storing the datasets. So this is more than sufficient, right? I just want to give you a brief on this. You can see the pricing here already. So based on that, you can modify whichever space you want. Once you select it, you can click on create space. This is how you create the space in the regular fashion in Hugging Face Up. This is not what we are going to follow. This part of the discussion is only to tell you about the Hugging Face Up spaces, to see what exactly it is. Now let us go back to Hugging Face Up spaces in Argilla documentation, and if you scroll down, there will be this particular link, deploy on HFSpaces. All you need to do is click this, and you will have to follow this option, and it will go through the process that is shown here. And let us actually go through this process right now. Let us close this out, and let us go scroll up and click on deploy on HFSpaces. The moment I deploy it, it moves to my Hugging Face Up spaces. That means that I've already logged into my Hugging Face Up account, so that's why it's able to move. If not, what will happen is it will ask you to sign in. So ensure that you sign in, and I'm going to say YT tutorial server. So that is the space name that I'm going to give, and I'm going to use Apache 2.0, and I'm going to take Docker. All these things are already pre-selected for you. You are not going to do any kind of selection. It's already done for you, even including this area has been already selected. So you don't need to do anything. After that, you can keep it as public, or if you want, you can make it as private, and you can click on create space. The moment you click on create space, if the space is available for you, the quota is available, then the container application starts, the Docker Compose starts working. It will take a couple of minutes for the Argilla server, the UI, to be installed and ready for serving. So let me continue the video after the space is ready. Here we can see that the server is already installed, and there were a couple of warnings, but the Argilla server installation has been completed here. And you can also see that the various users have been created, and also it is creating an annotator called as Argilla, and you can use that also to log into that. Workspace is also generated for you, and the Argilla server has been started. No dataset has been loaded. So all these things you can find it out. Following that, the next step starts, where the front end of Argilla is also up, and here you can see that the installation is complete. Now, important point you need to understand is that you need to know you need to understand what is your server link that you have to use for connecting with Python client. So before you do that, let us log in using the owner username and the password. So I'm using owner and 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 as password. Once you do that, you will be logged into the Argilla server. It's as simple as that. Once you are logged in, you will see that you can start going into the Argilla process next to connect to the Argilla server. So in order to connect to the Argilla server, you need to know either your local host IP address, and this is the port number. If you are using Hugging Face Up spaces, this space name you should know. So this space name is nothing but if you click on this. So if you click on this particular, just a second, there is a better way. 1 second. So in order to construct the Hugging Face Hub Spaces connectivity, you need to take this particular pattern that is provided here. You can copy this, and we can use this when you are going to connect to the client, that is Argilla client through Python. So for this, you have to first of all install the Argilla client in your local environment. From here on, this server is, the installation of the server is done. Next step, we are going to move on to start the installation process, start the connectivity process. So we have done the Argilla server installation, front-end installation on Hugging Face Up Spaces. Next, we are going to work on this Python client installation. And for that, what we are going to do is we are going to work with the command prompt. Let's do that. I am on a clean command prompt on my D drive. I am going to use the Python command for creating the virtual environment using the venv command, and the virtual environment name I am going to give is Argilla tutorial. Okay, so that is the virtual environment name I am going to give, and inside the virtual environment only I am going to do the installation. Keep one thing in mind, there are going to be a lot of installations that you will be doing, additional libraries installation that you'll be doing in this series of tutorials. So have a separate virtual environment. That is a very good reason why I'm telling this, because if you're going to do these libraries installation in your local Python installation, there is a high chance that your other applications will stop working. Don't take the risk, it's a nightmare. So ensure that you have a separate virtual environment for all your tutorials, especially when you're working with new libraries that you have never used before. So by the meantime, as you were listening to my rambling, the Argilla tutorial virtual environment is ready. We are going to activate it, and I already have the environment called as Venv, and that is for my experimentation. So this is that I'm going to work with the tutorial related files, so I'm creating a separate virtual environment. It's matter of choice. And next thing is that you can, once you have this kinds of virtual environment, you can create the requirements.txt and you can store it. Later you can delete this virtual environment and you can recreate it within no time. I'll be showing that also to you right now. So let's activate it first, and I will show you what I mean. So what you are seeing is the various files that I have got on the Argilla library that I have been trying to understand. Using these files, I have been trying to load the datasets, annotate the datasets, automate a couple of processes inside the Argilla workspace, etc. During that process, I had created this requirements.txt file. So this requirements.txt file contains, so if I use type and if I call requirements.txt, it will contain the various libraries that are required for the Argilla server to run, the Argilla client to run. Sorry about that. Sorry about the mistake. And all these are required. You might be wondering why these many things are required. Why accelerate? Why transformers? As we go down into the various tutorial videos, we will be starting to integrate with transformers. We will start integrating the datasets with setFit, sentence transformers, etc. So for these things, you will need all this libraries, especially Spacey. Also, we need the model encore web sm also to be installed. All these things are required. So ensure that you can actually take this requirements.txt in from the GitHub repo. The link will be shared with you. This is already a GitHub repo only. I am right now connecting through it from my local environment. I am going to do a pip installation, pip install r, and I am going to say requirements.txt. And the moment I use this command, it will review this requirements.txt and it will start pulling all the necessary files from the requirements.txt using the requirements.txt, not from the requirements.txt. So anyway, in my case, most of the files I've already downloaded and locally cached it. So it will take a couple of minutes to install. Let me get back to you after that. So as the installation is getting completed there, let me start working on the URL creation right now. So in my case, the URL that the HuggingFace Hub URL is going to be, the owner name is going to be Kamal JP, and the space name is going to be YouTube tutorial, YT tutorial. Just a minute, let me verify that. Actually, we don't need to verify that. We can just copy this from there and we can start working here. I need to remove these things, but yeah, keep the hyphen YT tutorial server. So YT tutorial server. So that is server. That will be the HuggingFace Hub Argilla server link. So this is how it will be, and I need to have a leading slash. If this is also not there, it will not be a problem, but have the slash, that's better. Once you are ready with this, and also once this installation is completed, then what we can do is we can start working on the with the Argilla client. As this installation is getting done, I am going to move to the existing installation that I already have, Argilla environment that I already have. So argin scripts and activate, zooming in. So this is the environment that I'm going to use for proceeding further. So as this environment will take a little more time to download, there are lots of points, lots of libraries like Torch, etc. needs to be downloaded. I'm going to cancel it at this moment because it's going to take a considerable amount of time. But the same process I've already completed, and I have the completed Argilla environment in this name, argin. I'll be using that. Let's go back, and this in Jupyter Notebook in VSCode, in order to select this particular environment, any new environment for that matter, you need to use Control-Shift-P. Once you do that, you will get the option of selecting the interpreter, go to select at workspace level and enter interpreter path. That's very important. And then you can click on find, and then you can give the path of argin, the virtual environment. Most importantly, if you click here directly, and if you click on select another environment, you will not be able to select a new environment. So you have to use Control-Shift-P only, then only it will work. Fine. So now we are all set. I am going to start this notebook, and I am going to start interacting with the Argilla server that I've already installed. Where I've installed it? I've installed it in this location, HuggingFace HFSpaces, CamelJP, YT tutorial server. Let's go back, and I'm going to use rg.init. In order to connect with the server, we have to import Argilla as rg. You can import it with any name that you want, but rg is most of the time used in the tutorials in Argilla, so stick to that. If you're going to copy paste the code, this will be a better option. So you can use rg.init, and if you're going to execute this, if all is well, if this link is correct, and if the owner and the API key is all passing, then you will see that the client is able to connect with the Argilla server, and after that we can start making a lot of things. So let's first connect, and let me show you if there is an error also, we can resolve it. So here the URL has been properly formed. Ensure that you are using this format, and the owner and password for that owner along with the HF user, everything has been given properly. So there is no any issue. So the client has connected here, but it is saying the user warning, and it is also telling the version. So this is 1.26.1 version, and the client is using 1.23.1. So this can actually create some kind of issues, but for the beginning it doesn't matter. Also, second thing is no workspace configuration has been detected. So meaning it is saying that this particular user has not created any new workspaces. So that's something that we are going to sort out next. For that, we are going to say rg.create rg.workspace, and we can say create. The method for creating the workspace is using rg.workspace.create. So that is a method. I'm going to create a workspace called as localgilla. So this is the name that I like, so I have used it. You can give any good name that you like. So I'm going to execute this command, and it's going to create the workspace. You can see that once the workspace is created, it gives back the ID, and also it gives the name, inserted at the timestamp, updated, etc. All these are provided. It's very streamlined server. So one of the controlled and fully type supporting server. Why I am saying type supporting? Because most of the inputs, or in fact all of the inputs that is sent to the server is checked for the type, and then only it is used for the processing. So the programming has been done in a very streamlined fashion. Fine, the workspace is created. Next, what we can do is we can actually create a user. So in order to create a user, we have to first of all change this. We don't want it to be Argilla, we want it to be localgilla. That's the workspace that we created, right? So this can actually become a little repetitive to type the workspace again and again, but I would actually prefer to type it, because that will actually make it easier for you to practice and also to remember that you have a workspace called as localgilla. I'm going to create a new user called as new hyphen user, and the first name, last name, password, etc. And the role is going to be annotator. Okay, what are roles in Argilla server? So there are a couple of roles that you need to be aware of. So there is admin role, there is owner role, there is annotator role. All these roles have different powers inside the server. The highest power is to the admin, the middle power is to the owner, and the lowest power is to the annotator. That's all you need to know. You don't need to be really concerned about the roles as of now, because we are going to work on the server that is hosted by ourselves. So no one is going to question us, right? Only thing is ensure that this particular server, I have actually made it as public, right? This server can be accessed by anyone else also, meaning they can actually store stuff in your server. So it's better that once, anyway, after this particular tutorial, I'll be removing this server from HuggingFace HFSpaces, so it will not be, or I will making it as private, so it will not be available for everybody to look or connect. So do the same thing. Understand the security risks also. In this case, it's not much of a risk, but I'm just giving you a heads up so that you can be aware. If you are going to do it from your local machine, you don't need to really worry about, because not many can actually tunnel into your machine until unless you have created a proper tunnel, Nginx tunnel or some other SSL tunnel. It's very difficult to connect to the localhost. Fine. So let's go back. We are going to create the user, and the user will get created, and you will see that the user object can be looked at. So this user object is kind of a Python object that you can access by using the dot notation. So if I use user.id, then you can get the ID of the user. If I say name, first name, that is, I can get the first name. So the new is the first name, and so you can see all these things that has been updated here, and this user has been also pushed into the server also. So here at this moment you are not seeing much of a difference here, because we have not done anything. We have not actually created a data set and we have pushed it. Until unless we do that, this particular page will not change. Also, one more important point that I did not highlight, which is already present here, is that you can click on this icon, you can go to my settings, and you can get the details of the ideas, details of the owner, username, name, etc. And also you can get the API key here by copying the key. By default, this is starred, and the API key will be same as this one, what you saw here, owner.api key. That's what you will see there. Continuing further, our intention is to first of all create a simple dataset, that is feedback dataset for test classification. You don't need to worry about what is feedback dataset, what is test classification at this moment, right? All we are going to do is we are going to execute this, and we are going to load this dataset into the Argilla server. So in order to do that, we are going to, so here I am creating a workspace name is getting assigned to a variable in Python, and I'm going to push this particular dataset that I created right now, the dataset, feedback dataset, into the Argilla with the name ds-1. That is what I'm going to do. So once I do this push command, so dataset.push to Argilla, this method will connect. So you can see that it is connecting to the Argilla server. It is saying dataset has been successfully pushed. It is giving me the info of the response, and it is also telling the info of the dataset that I have pushed. All these things, it is providing it to me, and it is providing it in a colorful fashion. So how it is doing this? It is doing this using the option, using the module called as rich in Python. So you can download that and you can explore it. Most of the time, I will also use rich for printing the dictionaries and the outputs from Argilla datasets in going forward. Okay, clear cells. So the dataset has been pushed. Now let us go back. And if you go to home, now you will see that the things have changed. So you can see that the dataset ds1 is populated, and if you click on it, you'll see that you have no pending records, meaning that there is no records present, but the dataset is ready. If you want to look at the settings of the dataset, you need to click on this gear icon. So if you click on the gear icon, it will actually give you the info about the dataset. It will tell you the fields that is present in the dataset. There is a single field. It will tell you the questions that has been created inside the dataset, And finally, it will allow you to delete the dataset. So these are the 4 things that you can do with the dataset, that is feedback dataset. Keep one thing in mind, there are different kinds of datasets inside Argilla, and most of the things are getting unified under feedback dataset as of now, but it is still work in process. Moving forward, next what you're going to do is we are going to push the data into the dataset. So for that, we are going to create records called feedback records, and we are going to add the records to the dataset. So let us do that. And once we have done that, you can actually check the record. And okay, that is one thing. Once you have done this, do you think that this record would have been updated to the server? Let us check it. Argilla server, that is. So let us go back and let us click on DS1, and you will see that there is nothing changing. So there is no any record here. So what has happened? Why the data has not flown here? Because you have to actually connect after you have pushed the dataset to the Argilla server. You have to again reconnect back, and then only you can add the records. In this case, so this was something very confusing to me in the beginning. So here I have done the dataset push to Argilla, and I have given the name as DS1, right? And after that I have created the records and I have added the records, but this is not going to work. So you have to again you have to again connect to the dataset that is inside the Argilla. So for that, so these are the various things that we will discuss in the next video. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to show you how to connect to the dataset and how you can work with that. So let me go to the end. We have to use rg.feedback dataset. That is the class that we used for creating the dataset in the first place. And then we have to call this from Argilla method. We need to give the name of the dataset followed by the workspace. So once that is done, you will have the connection back to the dataset that we have it inside the server. After that, you can say add record, and you can add the records that we created. So the records that we created just now, it's actually called as records. Let me show it to you. So here are the records that we created, and now we have actually added the records to the dataset at the bottom. And now this, even now, if you think that this has been pushed, it is not. Actually, we have to again push it. So this dataset is having the records. So if you do a DS1 right now, so it will actually tell you that it is having the records, but you need to still push it to the Argilla space in the server. So before that, let us check it. So let us go back to localgilla in our server. Let us do DS1 and see whether we have got any kind of any datasets. So here we can see that there is no any data point here inside the dataset. Let us go back. Let us do the push. So I will say DS1. So this is one point I want you guys to keep in mind, that you have to push to Argilla in order for the dataset to work, or else that's not gonna it's going to create a problem. Just a minute. After we create the records has to be a list, and we have to connect to the dataset using from Argilla method using rg.feedback dataset class. And once you say add records, once this method is run, what will happen is the add record method is run on the DS1 object. So this DS1 object is actually a feedback dataset class, and once you add the record, this records gets added to the server. So you can see that in the server here, there are 2 records right now that we created, that I showed you right now. I feel sad today, I feel so happy today, and you can actually change this and you can click on submit. So it has been annotated, and you can say it's actually moves to the next one. This is about sadness. You can click that and you can click on submit, and both of these things have been submitted. As you can see right now, if you refresh this page, if you go into this right now, you will see that there is no any pending records. But if you go to the submitted, you will see there are 2 submitted records. So you can see that here. So like this, you can actually complete the entire process. So here in this discussion, we saw a lot of stuff, right? We installed the Argilla server and the user interface, the client user interface. We also installed the Python installation process using the virtual environment and the requirements.txt file that I discussed with you. And then we went ahead and connected with the HuggingFace HFSpaces Argilla server that we installed in this video, and the Python client from this particular notebook. So this notebook also will be shared with you guys from the GitHub repo. So you can see it's Argilla basic intro. That is the name of the notebook. It will be inside exploring Argilla folder. That's where we started creating workspaces, creating users, connecting to the workspaces, and creating datasets, records. I mean, a lot of stuff. So all these things we did, and I believe that you have got an overview on how you can use Argilla. And in the next video, we will dive into local installation and also do the same thing again, so that you guys can get little more comfortable. After that, we will start working on pushing and pulling the data from Argilla server, and starting to really have fun. With that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice. See you guys, have a great time.